Welcome. So this is incredible that this is so prophetically coming down right now in front of us.
And this is a type of them becoming clean before the Lord.
This week's Come Follow Me is a special presentation of Farrell and Rhonda Pickering live from the Holy Land after having a whirlwind tour for 2 weeks. Now, Rhonda and Farrell have immediately upon returning from the tour went to the Holy Land where we've been watching them. This week, they're not going to be doing a standard Come Follow Me. They're going to be doing one shortly, but we're going to release this today. This was a recording they did a couple of days ago, live from Israel, and we are excited about their mission there and their trip there, and hope you enjoy this special Come Follow Me with Ron and Farrell Pickering live from the Holy Land.
I'm going to talk first a little bit about the signs in the heavens. Then Ron is going to go into the secret combinations, and then I'm going to wind up a little bit with what's going on here in Israel and the Red Heifer, etc. So let's just move right in. I wanted to talk a little bit. I was actually in Branson, Missouri a while back, and I was watching the play Esther, and I realized all of a sudden it just came to me that Esther married Xerxes. And when she married Xerxes, she had a son, Artaxerxes. Now, some people might debate that, and I'm not going to get into the logistics of all that. But it made total sense to me that Artaxerxes would be the son of Esther, and he would be a half-Jew, because he is the one that gave the decree that started the initial numbers of Daniel running in 458 BC. And that is just an incredible fact that in 458 BC, Artaxerxes gave the decree that started the 70 weeks or 490 years running. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is providence. You had something there?
Well, I was just going to say, too, I think it's amazing that, we're tying in Daniel's numbers clear from Esther all the way to the Red Heifers. I mean, it's involved in all of it. So.
Yeah, it's just beautiful that Daniel was given so much information that tied to the appointed times of Christ several times over. And then I wanted to jump into the providence of the whole situation. I mean, we have had so much providence, let alone the providence that happened in the story of Esther and everywhere else. We have been able to just experience on our eclipse trip. We had so many providential situations come up where, like the close associate and friend of Ron Wyatt actually gave us a personal lecture in the Wonder Center near Dixon. And we have had just that rolling over and over.
Just tender mercies.
Tender mercies. And we've had it on this trip in Israel. It's just been incredibly. And third, then Ron is going to pick up this eclipse trip, and particularly stories of the secret combinations that come out of that. Okay, I wanted to just jump in a little bit to the signs. And if you want more on this, we're about to have a Sisters of Liberty broadcast come up that's actually went into detail about all that. So when that Sisters of Liberty happens, you will have that information.
And all you have to do is just...
But in Helaman 14:6, and behold, this is not all, there are many signs and wonders in heaven. I want to talk about these signs and wonders in heaven. Back in 2014, actually, in 2014, we had the blood moon start. And it was in that, you can hear the Muslim call to prayer in the background. Anyway, so the signs in the heavens, we talked about then, and then I kind of got away from them a little bit because to me it was kind of old news, but now it's become new news because of the eclipse that has just occurred. And there's many signs in heavens that we have experienced, and yet everybody thinks it doesn't really mean anything, because in the next verse, well, in 28, he says, and the angel said unto me that there shall be greater things than these, into the intent that they might believe the signs and these wonders. And it should come to pass on all the face of the land, to the intent that they should not, no cause for unbelief amongst the children of men. Now, we know that's kind of crazy. People actually have many causes for unbelief. And so it's kind of funny with everything that's gone on. We have a tendency to think it's going to be fulfilled in the now, and it's not. It's fulfilled just like at the time of Christ. The sign of his birth was 33 years before the sign of his death. 33 and 4 days, actually, is my position. Anyway, and then we moved to Helaman 16:23, and he says, notwithstanding the many signs and wonders which were wrought upon the people of the Lord, that many miracles which they did, Satan did get a hold of their hearts and the people on the face of the land, or upon all the people on the face of the land. So Satan does get a hold of our hearts when we don't see instant fulfillment. We're kind of an impatient breed, us in the human race. We kind of think everything's all about us, and so we like to time it in around our time scale. But really, it's much more long-term. God's plans are very long-term. Okay, and there begin to be many doubtings and disputations among the people, notwithstanding so many signs had been given. Those things are all occurring real time as we go. Now, I wanted to go into 3 Nephi 1:15, and it came to pass that the words which came to unto Nephi were fulfilled according to that which had been spoken. For behold, at the going down of the sun, there was no darkness, and the people began to be astonished, because there was no darkness in the land. Once again, they get astonished and they start to know. And then in verse 17, and they begin to know that the Son of God must shortly appear, yea, in fine all people upon the face of the whole earth, from the west to the east, both in the land of the north and in the south, were so excited and astonished that they fell down to the earth. That is just incredibly exciting that people were there and then so shortly they forget. Now, you remember back in 9/11, 2001, the whole country kind of got a little more prayerful. You've seen the president go to church. You've seen lots of things happen. Short-lived. Here we are, just a little over 20 years later, and the whole country has forgotten. And now we're accepting all of the abominations of the day. And in the heart, believe it or not, this word astonishment occurs in a chiastic form almost.
In 3 Nephi.
In 3 Nephi. And it came to pass that thus passed away the 99th year, and the people began to forget the signs and wonders, and began to be less and less astonished at the signs and wonders. That is just an amazing thing that we realize that these signs and wonders get forgotten so easy.
I was just going to say, what we're doing here is we're linking the word astonished throughout 3 Nephi, and you're seeing that there were so many signs, but the center of it is that they began to be less and less astonished with the signs, just like we're doing today.
By the way, a little rabbit trail. Right behind us is the Tower of David, or the Citadel of David, where they put on a lot of presentations. Actually, One for Israel has their singers come and perform here. Aaron Schutz and Joshua Aaron. Okay, and they perform some of the most beautiful songs right in our back door here. We're actually on the roof of the hotel we're staying in. It is just beautiful. We can see right to my right the Dome of the Rock and Temple Mount. We can see the Citadel of David. We are at the Jaffa Gate with the city of Jerusalem behind us. Back to where we were, people getting less and less astonished at the signs. That is where I see we are today. I have literally talked about this some 11 years ago, when we first gave our first presentation and what was happening, and this lead up to the beginning of Daniel's numbers that we're now on the doorstep of. And now it came to pass that Lyconius received this epistle. He was exceedingly astonished because of the boldness of Gideoni, demanding the possession of their land, of the Nephites, and also threatening the people and avenging the wrongs of those who had received no wrong, save it where they had wronged themselves by descending away into the wicked and abominable robbers. And many were astonished at thee. Well, I'm gonna actually save that for Rhonda. I'm gonna hand off right here, and I'm gonna let Rhonda take it from here for a minute.
Well, because you're talking about the secret combinations.
Yeah, I'm leading right into what you were going to talk about.
So much to do with the eclipse and what's going on in 3 Nephi. Right here, he's linking the words astonished, and what we saw right here is one of those passages in 3 Nephi 3:11 was talking about Gideoni and Lyconius being exceedingly astonished at the demands of the secret combinations of their day. And then the last use of astonished in 3 Nephi 20 is that there's a servant that appears on the scene, and he is going to be marred, and the people are astonished at that his visage was marred more than any man. So here in the latter part of 3 Nephi, that astonished linking word is linking to both the secret combination and those that stand for truth and righteousness against the secret combinations. And that is all about a literary structure that Mormon is doing in Helaman chapter 6 to 3rd Nephi chapter 6. So we were right there on the eclipse trip in the center of the land where it crossed at Makonda. And here we learn, if you follow Wayne May and his presentations, that this was in the southern tip of Illinois. This is where the King Laconius and Gigdonai actually built their forts and gathered fortresses, right?
Yeah, plural.
And gathered the people to the center of the land. There's 15 of those forts across the blocking off the southern tip of Illinois. There's the Mississippi River and the Ohio River that were your barriers on the two sides, and then they built forts about a mile across.
Line of sight.
All the way across the top. There's been 41 sites located, and again, Wayne May has discussed all of this being the center of the land, the center of the Hopewell culture, and this is where the Book of Mormon says in 3rd Nephi, chapters 1 through about chapter 6, that they gathered to stand against the Gadianton robbers in their day. And lo and behold, this is exactly where the eclipse crossed its path over Makonda.
Kind of over New Madrid, too.
Right.
That whole area.
Yes, tip of Illinois. We know from Ether, chapter 2, I want to focus on verses 9 and 10, that when we don't serve the God of our land, when we are ripened in iniquity, and then in chapter 10, this is progressive. They reach a point where there is a fullness of iniquity in the land. That is when we get the broom. That is when the people are swept off the face of the land. And so this wickedness, this secret combinations that Ether chapter 8 warns us about, is part of a literary structure that Mormon is putting together between Helaman chapter 6 and 3rd Nephi chapter 6. In Helaman chapter 6, they did obtain the secret combinations, obtained sole management of the government. And through their secret murders and combinations, I'm reading in chapter 6, verses 38 and 39, they did trample under their feet and smite and rend and turn their backs upon the poor and the meek. And we see that they were in an awful state, ripening for an everlasting destruction. Just like Ether said, they ripen, then there's a fullness of iniquity.
So we actually went to the stone fort right there at Makonda, and it was incredible. It was really fun for the group. In our tour we took back there, it was really fun. Kind of our last, well, I guess it really wasn't our last Hopewell style. We had one more to come.
It's so incredible to read your Book of Mormon and to read in Alma 50 how they built those forts, and then to lower your book, look over the top, and there they are, what's left of them, testifying of the things that are in the Book of Mormon. Now, in Helaman chapter 6, we see that there is going to be, in the first part of the chapter, they're going to speak about a period of peace in the land. And we're going to notice in 3rd Nephi chapter 6, we've got the same structure. At the beginning of the chapter, there is peace in the land for a period of 5 years. And it talks about, in both chapters, the land north and the land south. Peace and interaction between the Lamanites and the Nephites, and they travel from place to place. It's a period of prosperity and an abundance of grain, flocks and herds, domestic animals. I'm giving you all keywords that are used in both chapters. It's so parallel that it's obvious that Mormon is bracketing these chapters in the Book of Mormon, and we note right out of the gate that they occur right before the first coming of Christ. So he's bracketing a parallel to the second coming of Christ, and he's going to bracket 3 stories in this particular literary structure, each story being 5 chapters each. We're only going to really have time to talk about the last one. There is wealth and gold, but here's the kicker. Both chapters end with the murder of the chief judge of the Nephites, which is a little scary in a prophetic type and shadow kind of sense. Now, at the end of Helaman chapter 6, he goes into a chiastic structure, and there are a pattern of 6 events that happen. First, there's wickedness and disputes, then riches and pride, secret combinations. The righteousness flips. It goes from the Nephites to the Lamanites, and the Nephites become wicked, we have the spread of these secret combinations, and then the oaths and the covenants that they are making. And the reason I went through those 6 steps is because we're going to see them repeated in 3rd Nephi chapter 6 at the end. So again, this is a parallelism in the Book of Mormon that is crossing right over on the story of Laconius and Gigadoni, where the eclipses cross. Okay, so in chapter 6, verses 22 through 24, we see that the robbers are entering into secret oaths and signs and covenants. Then in verses 26 through 30, we see that the Nephites are also entering into the secret oaths and covenants. So
Like-
this wickedness is spreading.
Like, does that feel like present day news?
Yes. And again, I want to give credit to Dr. Abraham Gileadi, as always. I took these parallels in his book, Keys to the Book of Mormon, and then I developed them further myself. So here in 3rd Nephi chapter 2, we see that the Lamanites and the Nephites that are righteous are uniting together in verse 12. And then in verse 14, we see that those people that were converted, and we see it again, that they united with the Lamanites, and the curse was taken from them. They were being blessed because of their stand against the secret combinations. Now, when we get to chapter 3, and we're speeding through the story of Laconius and Gigadoni, it's 5 chapters long, but it is the deliverance. It is the deliverance of the righteous that Mormon is focusing in on. And it is the destruction of the secret combinations, which is everything to do, again, with this sign of the eclipse here. Laconius is going to be exceedingly astonished because the Gadianton robbers are actually going to demand the possession of their lands. And they are going to be threatening them. Of course, Laconius is not going to be afraid of the rantings of a Gadianton robber, and they are going to cry for the Lord to strength and begin to gather together. In 3rd Nephi 14, we see that the robbers sally forth from the hills and begin to take possession of the lands that were left desolate by the Nephites as they left and gathered together for their own protection. In chapter 4, verses 15 through 18, it says that they went to places of security. And it was there in the center of the land that the Gadianton robbers are going to lay siege on them and try and cut them off from supplies and try and starve them out. But of course,
It's a reverse siege almost.
It becomes a reverse siege because they had much provision laid up in store. And we see that eventually the Lamanites are going to be the ones that are starving, and the Gadianton robbers. I shouldn't say the Lamanites, because many of the Lamanites have joined with the Nephites at that time. It's actually the secret combinations and the Gadianton robbers that are going to be the ones that run out of food. And when they become weakened, the Lord is going to say, go ahead and take them out, they who tried to murder and steal from all of you. And so again, it's a flipping situation. We have the Nephites becoming wicked. We have the Lamanites becoming righteous and joining with the remnant of the righteous Nephites, and they are protected in the land. And anytime you see this kind of protection, it is a Davidic covenant. It is when the leaders are faithful to the Lord and the people stay loyal to those leaders. That is when the Lord himself will protect those people. Now, as we get to the end of chapter 4, notice the words. They break forth into singing, and they become one. And they cry out, Hosanna to the Most High God. In chapter 5, we see them move into a national covenant, because we notice in verse 1 that it says, and now behold, there was not a living soul among all the people of the Nephites who did doubt in the least the words of the holy prophets. And I just love this. You can just underline these words in verses 1 through 3 in 3rd Nephi chapter 5. For they knew that it must needs be that the prophecies would be fulfilled. And they knew that it must be expedient that Christ would come because of the many signs.
The many signs, yeah.
Yes. And they did forsake all of their sins and did serve God with all diligence day and night.
By the way, the eclipse was incredible. in the midst of the
So
land.
fun.
It was absolutely incredible. It was so fun. We had almost 4 minutes, about 4 minutes of eclipse. It was unbelievably awesome with our group. So anyway,
And they did covenant that they would murder no more and were set at liberty. And then those that were wicked were the prisoners that they had taken in. They gave them the opportunity to join them in the covenant, to keep the laws of the land. And if they would not make that covenant, they were punished according to the law. And we have a Captain Moroni situation. If you're going to live in Zion, you will keep the laws and respect your brother. Now, in 3 Nephi 6, we see again these parallels that are going on with Helaman chapter 6. We said that there was a process that was going on at the end of Helaman chapter 6, where there was wickedness and disputes, then riches and pride and secret combinations. The righteous Lamanites, the reversal, the Nephites are becoming wicked. And we see something pretty scary, though, in 3 Nephi 6. Because at the end of that chapter, we have this same pattern and we have that same chiastic thing going on that we saw in Helaman chapter 6. But when we remember in Helaman chapter 6, it was that the secret combinations were spreading to the Nephites. Well, here in Helaman chapter 6, we have the secret combinations are spreading to even the high priests, and they are making secret covenants to murder the people of God. So we have this infiltration of secret combinations amongst the people of God. And this is what is in the type and the shadows that Mormon is bracketing and trying to show us. In the other two stories, Helaman's sons Nephi and Lehi, we have a story in type and shadow of the conversion of the Lamanites and the restoration of Israel as they become converted and then go out and preach to each other. And then the middle story was the story of Samuel the Lamanite, as he told them, when your wickedness is to the point that you start to kill the prophets, that is when your iniquity is full. When here in 3 Nephi 6, verse 23 and 27 to 30, when the prophets are secretly put to death and judges, lawyers, and high priests make secret covenants to murder the people of God and destroy the liberty of the land, you know that it is time for the broom, and that will bring about the destruction of the government, is what we read in 3 Nephi chapter 6 at the end of the chapter there. And actually the first few verses in chapter 7, it said, thus they did destroy the government of the land. They tried to establish a king and get rid of the government of the people. And we will see that they did not establish the king, but they did murder the chief judge of the land. So again, we have that exact parallel. And so to me, it's absolutely fascinating that we have this chiastic X. Chi comes from the letter X in the Greek. That's what chiasmus is named after, a poetry that makes a cross in the center, and that's your main point.
that's also the sign of
Exactly.
the eclipse.
We have it in literature, and we have it in the stars, in the signs in the heavens, in the skies. And the fact that that eclipse crossed right over where Laconius and Gidgiddonite and the people that loved liberty and loved the Lord withstood the secret combinations in the land. I think it's incredible.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I need to also mention before you take up the Israel side of this little broadcast that all of this information can be found on our website, propheticappointments.com. If you go to the Isaiah classes, the one that's talking about Laconius and Gidgiddonite is class number 28. And if you go all the way to page 4, because there's lots of pages of Isaiah lessons, actually, nope, it's page 3, that you will find those lessons that talk about the Davidic covenant and the Sinai covenant. These are all going to play out in our time, and we have to know the words of Isaiah in order to understand prophecy.
Okay, and along that same line, we are starting to post a lot more video up to our YouTube prophetic appointments. So even this broadcast is going to be on YouTube. If you happen to miss it or need a repeat of it or whatever the case, we are just grateful for everything that's happened. I mean, like I said, I'm going to go back to the signs a little bit for just a moment. In the signs in the heavens, we've seen 4 eclipses of the moon, and those blood moons were on holy days. They were all on appointed times, and that was just incredible. And then we had the amazing, actually, conjunction of Venus and Jupiter again in 2017. And then towards the end of 2017, we had the first eclipse that started bracketing.
Didn't it say in 3rd Nephi, and they were many signs,
Many
many signs that they
begin to take them for granted. And I think we get excited, but because it, the whole world didn't blow up on April the 9th, we think, oh, that's just another crazy sign. Well, let me tell you, signs aren't like that. They are progressive and they're building. And it marks a time when these things are increasing. And I did a whole presentation, The Changing of the Guard, which is also on Rod's site, where it talks about all these signs. I also just recently re-recorded an updated version of that on Sisters of Liberty. You can find it there.
I just wanted to explain that the changing of the guard, what we're talking about there is the moving from the time of the Gentiles, the time of the gospel to the nations, to the restoration of the house of Israel.
The full restoration of the house of Israel.
Prophesied clear back from the covenants made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
So now let's get to this trip. Why are we in Israel? Why are we not there sitting on the stage doing the 3 lessons we were told we had scheduled? Well, we're in Israel because when we were on our eclipse trip and we were in Neo Nefertah, we got some tips that probably in the next 10 days, the news would be filled with the information on the Red Heifer. And so we made arrangements to come here as quick as we could. It's a miracle story. I'm going to tell a little of that story. I actually was so conflicted with feelings in me of what to do and whether I should go forward with this trip at this exact moment or not. And I couldn't sort my own feelings from the spirit at that moment because I was just all conflicted inside. And so I gathered the family together in prayer, and we prayed that if we were supposed to come, excuse me. If we were supposed to come, that he would just make it so obvious, and he did. All of a sudden, the tickets that we bought were $800 cheaper than the day before. Everything fit together. We got this incredible location right at the Jaffa Gate, which I can look right over there and see Temple Mount, the Mount of Olives, everything. If I got time on the end, I'll put a little tag on the end of this video and show you the view of the Mount of Olives and everything that's there, and the Temple Mount that we have right from our hotel. So we're able to just keep an eye on everything right from the rooftop of our hotel. It's kind of fun. But anyway, moving along, this whole conflict, everybody's been just all over the internet about the red cows. And you all know the Hamas leader who said the bringing of the red cows is what caused October 7th attack, which was also on a holy day. It was the 7th day of unleavened bread. It's just incredible that God does these things. In this timing, he does these things. Of course, the enemies of Israel like to attack them on their holy days, and that's probably not going to change. But this whole concept that this red heifer sacrifice has become so big of a deal, it's all over the internet, it's all over everywhere. Well, I just want to clear up a little that even though they have, you've got some, you want me to come closer?
I'm cold.
She's cold. We're on the roof and the wind's blowing. Even though the red heifer's whole thing is going on, he blew my whole concentration. Anyway, even though the whole red heifers things is going on, God's got this in hand. And now we are coming to know that it's probably not going to happen before Passover like they planned. They were pretty serious about it. But because of the Iranian attack,
Well, the security threat.
and the security
For
threats,
the heifers.
and for the heifers and everything, they have postponed again. And so our trip, we may not get to witness this trip the Red Heifers, which is kind of a disappointment to us. And yet we still may. I'm sure they're going to pull it off without notice because they've gone completely silent because it's just too much of a security problem. So even though this is all taking place, it's still been incredible because, well, I'm going to spill a little bit of the beans, and that is, we have found the place. We know without a doubt where where it's going to happen, and we observe it, 2 or 3 times a day to see if there's any activity. But it's just really fun to see these things in live action. We are living in such a prophetic time. So this whole ordinance of the red cow, we call it the red heifer, is such a fascinating thing. And this offering of the red heifer, the prophet Joseph Smith actually talks about it. The offering of the sacrifice are not all consumed upon an altar, but the blood is sprinkled, and a fat and a certain portion thereof are consumed. These sacrifices, as well as every ordinance, belong to the priesthood, will, when the temple of the Lord shall be built, and the sons of Levi be purified, be fully restored and attended to in all of their powers. That's Teaching the Prophet Joseph Smith, page 173. So these things we have thought are completely done away, but yet they are going to be completely restored according to the prophet Joseph Smith in Teaching the Prophet on page 173, just so you can verify what we're saying. Did you have something you want to throw in there?
I just want to finish it. It says that the law of Moses and all its rites and ceremonies is not what will be restored. It says this has never been spoken of by the prophets. But those things that existed prior to Moses, namely sacrifice, will be continued. And we remember that
Abraham, Adam, Abraham,
Noah sacrificed.
all of them did sacrifice before. And truthfully, it's a whole lot more humane than our butcher shops. I mean, the way they conducted themselves and they honored the animals, and when they took life for sustenance, for life, when they took life for life, it was much more humane than what we do.
And in our Western culture, we don't even understand what it meant to them. For us, it's all about mustard and ketchup, and
yeah, we don't even think about the animals.
Who cares how we slaughter our animals?
Yeah, it's just incredibly insane that we have taken issue with sacrifice, but we're okay with our butcher shops. It's nuts. This whole thing about Daniel's numbers and the whole layout of Daniel's numbers occurred. I mean, my understanding of Daniel's numbers actually began to be more complete in 2020 when I understood the relationship of the numbers between the High Holy Days. And we know that the searching the red heifer was going on, but they didn't even have the red heifers that are here in Israel now, weren't even conceived yet. So you know that us being here in 2024 and them talking about doing the beginning of these offerings, that
we've been looking for it for a long time.
We've been looking for it for a long time. So when it happened, now to be honest with you, I wasn't looking for the red heifer. I hadn't even thought about it yet.
We didn't really contemplate that there would have to be a red heifer before the offerings could begin.
Could commence. And just so you know, there's some of our previous broadcasts and a lot of broadcasts on the air are actually inaccurate in one thing, and that is that we've assumed that the altar, the big shiny white altar up there in the Shiloh area, is the altar they'll use. It's absolutely not true. They don't need that altar. They need to make an altar of unhewed stones. And
for the daily offering.
For the daily offering, and all they need to do for this offering is a
stack of cedar wood.
Stack of wood to do the red heifer offering. So a lot of the speculation we've all put out there that this altar needs to be there, that altar is only for rehearsal and those types of things. I don't even know if they'll use it for the temple ceremonies, but they are actually very clear that all they need is an altar stacked of stone, and they do not need the temple to start this. So everybody that thinks they're going to start this offering of the red heifer,
it's going to mean building the third temple.
That's not true. I don't think we're going to see the third temple get built until 27.
That's in Ezra 3.
Yeah, it's in Ezra 3. From the first day of the 7th month began they to do burnt offerings unto the Lord, but the foundations of the temple of the Lord had not yet been laid. So that's clearly, we anticipate the temple has to be there. It does not. I do believe that the temple will be part of the Antichrist treaty. That's what I think, the last 7 years. That's my perception of those things. Now, when you go to our work, and many of you are very familiar with it, and those of you who are not, you can always find everything available on propheticappointments.com, our charts on these things, and
In your
also
book.
on the book. And we had the fun of giving our book to a pastor out here today who was talking, and we had an opportunity to present Daniel's numbers to the director of
A dear
his
friend.
only son, and he's become a dear friend. The movie that just came out in Angel Studios, His Only Son, we have been dialoguing every morning at breakfast, and he actually spent 3 or 4 hours with us while we gave him an overview of
And-
Daniel's numbers.
And
Really
he's
fun.
working on the movie Jacob.
Yeah, he's working on the movie Jacob. So it's been an incredible time of divine appointments, as some people like to call it, kind of like Raphael Cruz called our meeting, Divine Appointments. Anyway, so that being said, you can always find everything on propheticappointments.com. Okay, in Numbers 19, 12 through 13, it has this crazy thing about the red heifer. And it says, he shall purify himself with it, the ashes of the red heifer, on the third day, and on the seventh day he shall be clean. But if he purify himself not in the third day, then the seventh day he shall not be clean. That is just an incredible linking to the third day from Christ is the seventh day from Adam, and that the 10th red heifer will bring in the millennial day,
The Messianic
the
Age.
Messianic age. And obviously it's not overnight. Everybody wants to think it's overnight. They want to think, boom, boom. We think like a light switch. You know, you throw the switch and it's light. No, this is a dawning thing. And we have, according to even Daniel's numbers, we have a progression of these signs.
Just really quickly, you said that awfully fast, that the third day from Christ was the seventh day from Adam. Can you explain that just a little?
Well, I want you to.
All
You're better
right,
at
so
it.
here we go. So according to D&T 77, it says that those seven seals in Revelation represented the 7,000 years of the temporal existence of the earth, from the fall of Adam to the time that we're living in right now. And we know that that seventh day is the millennial day of the Lord. So if you count the 7 days of the earth from Adam, the seventh day is the millennial day. But if you count from when Christ came on the earth, it has been 2,000 years. So the third day would represent the same millennial day from Christ that the seventh day was from Adam, that kingdom of the Lord, when he is reigning as King of Kings on the earth. And so it's very fascinating when you understand that the third day from Christ, speaking a day of the Lord as 1,000 years in 2 Peter chapter 3, is the 7,000 years from the fall of Adam. Then you understand a new dimension to what these verses are saying in Numbers 19. That if you purify yourself on the third day, you
Christ.
receive your Savior. He's the one that's resurrected on the third day. He's the one that has all of these things. In Hosea 6, verse 2, it says that after 2 days he will raise us up, in the third day we will live in his sight. So these scriptures about the third day are representing Christ, and the seventh day represents that
All of
millennial
creation.
day, the day of the Lord, the Sabbath of the earth from Adam. And so when you keep that in mind and you read that on the third day, you will be sprinkled, but and if you are, the seventh day you'll be clean. Whereas if you are not sprinkled, if you're not believing on the third day, then on the seventh day you will not be clean.
Whosoever toucheth a dead body of any, this is verse 13 after that seventh day, whosoever toucheth a dead body of any man that is dead, and purified not himself, defileth the tabernacle of the Lord, and that soul shall be cut off from Israel, because the water of separation was not sprinkled upon him. He shall be unclean. His uncleanness is yet upon him. So it's absolutely necessary that we do this red heifer thing in order for them to do their offerings. The Levites here,
They know they're not
They
clean
know they are.
from sin and death.
for it is the blood of bulls and of goats and of the ashes of the heifer, sprinkling the unclean, sanctify and purify of the flesh. According to Hebrews.
This is Paul in Hebrews.
So
chapter
even
9.
Paul
He's
is talking
about
about this. In verse 14, in Hebrews 9, verse 14, I just read 13. how much more shall the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without spot of God, to purify your conscience from dead works to serve the living God. So this is incredible that this is so prophetically coming down right now in front of us.
And this is a type of them becoming clean before the Lord.
Now I've got to hurry because I'm running out of time, but we're in Ezekiel 36, which we've been talking about quite a bit lately, and this famous verses that are talking about the sprinkling of the water. And I will sanctify my great name, which was profaned among the heathen, which ye have profaned in the midst of them. And the heathen shall know that I am the Lord, saith the Lord God, when I shall be sanctified in you before their eyes. For I will take you from among the heathen, and will gather you out of the countries, and I will bring you unto your own land. Then I will sprinkle clean water upon you, and ye shall be clean. From all your filthiness and from your idols I will cleanse you. And a new heart also I will give you, and a new spirit. And I will put within you, and I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and ye shall keep my commandments and do them. And ye shall dwell in the land that I have given to your fathers, and ye shall be my people, and I will be your God. That's the covenant language that's about to happen.
Covenant, and that's the same covenant when they were faithful to a man in Lyconius.
They're about to do this, just like in America. Some of us are about to do this. We're about to be in that covenant.
If we will be strong.
I'm just telling you, be in that covenant. So in the process, I'm about done. I think I'm going to close actually right here. I was going to go into the East Gate a little bit and the Holy of Holies and how the temple, I believe, can be built without the Dome of the Rock moving.